Welcome to Mindset in Stone podcasts, where we dive deep into the most compelling books on the shelf. Join hosts Dave and Poppy as they uncover the stories, themes, and ideas that shape our understanding and inspire curiosity. Get ready to explore the big ideas that leave a lasting impact. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Mindset in Stone podcast. Today we are launching into an incredibly potent framework. It's one that promises not just creative output, but, deep creative recovery, increased self-worth, and a far more resilient life. We're taking a deep dive into Julia Cameron's phenomenal and I think often deceptively simple resource, The Artist's Way Toolkit.
And we really need to frame this correctly for you, the listener, because this isn't just a manual for professional artists. It's not at all. It's really methodology for anyone who feels blocked or stuck or, just disconnected from their own potential. Whether you are a scientist needing a breakthrough, a busy parent struggling with burnout, or, someone navigating a major career transition, these principles of creative recovery, they apply universally.
So the mission today is to equip you with a profound understanding of the mechanism behind this whole system. Cameron lays out what she calls a sure-footed path to creative recovery, and it's built on 4 essential and crucially sequential tools. These tools are morning pages, artist dates, walks, and guidance.
Right. And understanding the philosophical core is really the starting point here. This entire system rests on 2, I'd say, pretty radical principles. First, creativity is not some elite skill. It's the natural order of life. The universe itself is just pure creative energy. And second, the refusal to be creative, the self-sabotage, the avoidance that is fundamentally counter to our true nature. When you refuse to create, you are, in essence, refusing to participate fully in your own life.
So we are diving deep into the foundation of that path. We want to move you from just understanding it intellectually to actual practical change. And we have to start where all the work begins, the non-negotiable bedrock of the practice.
Morning pages.
Morning pages, or MP, yeah. They're deceptively simple, but the rules are rigid for a reason. They are the daily spiritual discipline that underpins everything else.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics because they are very specific. 3 daily pages written longhand on 8.5 by 11-inch paper. So that's 3 full sides total. Now, why the extreme specificity? Especially with the paper size and the volume. Can I just write 2 pages in a tiny notebook? Well, the specifics are really about volume and a kind of spatial liberation. The 3-page requirement is the minimum threshold you need to move past this superficial chatter, the grocery lists, the obligations, the easy thoughts, and actually hit the subconscious material. If you stop at 2 pages, you often stop right before the real issue comes up. And using that big 8.5 by 11-inch paper, it matters. It gives you physical space for your thoughts to flow without the constraint that a small journal imposes. It's like a message to your inner critic that this space is big enough for your mess.
And the content is completely unstructured, correct? You're just writing about anything and everything that crosses your mind, no matter how scattered it feels.
Exactly. There's no wrong way to do pages. You're just aiming for volume over quality. If you get stuck, you literally write, I have nothing to say, over and over until the resistance breaks and something real finally surfaces. It's a practice in trusting the flow, not judging the content.
But the critical timing. This has to be done in the morning, as close to waking up as possible. As someone who, naturally wants to reflect at the end of a busy day, this seems like a really unnecessary restriction. Why the rigidity of the morning?
This taps into some really profound psychological insight, drawing heavily on Jungian concepts. There's this critical 45-minute window when you first wake up, before the ego, that's the part of us focused on self-defense and performance and control, before it's fully operational. If you write in the evening, you're engaging with the fully armored ego, reflecting on a day you can no longer influence. And that often just leads to punitive self-criticism.
So morning pages are leveraging that moment of pre-ego vulnerability.
Precisely. That vulnerable window lets the authentic self, or you could call it the inner child, speak directly to the page. By doing this brain dump first thing, you are literally laying a golden track for your entire day. You're choosing authenticity and vulnerability as your foundation, which makes you so much more receptive to change and intuition rather than just being defensive against the world.
Okay, but a lot of listeners will try this and they'll complain, their pages feel negative or repetitive or just filled with anxiety. How does Cameron address that fear that we are simply perpetuating misery.
She offers the most crucial reframing of the whole practice. You are not perpetuating negativity, you are ventilating it. Think of your mind like a crowded, dusty attic. If you never open the window, that stale, anxious air just sits there. Morning pages are the open window. They literally siphon off the negatives and the emotional clutter, making physical room for the positive to enter and for clarity to emerge.
I find the description of this effect really compelling. She calls it spiritual chiropractic.
That term just captures the fundamental rebalancing that happens. When we live life intellectually, we get spiritually unbalanced, always trying to control outcomes and agendas that aren't ours. The pages, they force a kind of tough love discipline. They act like a friend who repeats the same issue, the abusive relationship, the financial boundary problem, the creative block over and over and over until you finally say, enough, I have to deal with this. They prevent codependency by keeping you centered, forcing you to focus on your own well-being and your own boundaries. They're like the bumpers that keep your life trajectory straight.
And when you maintain that centered practice, the tangible results just flow out into every area of life. It helps you happen to our days instead of our days happening to us.
Look at the case of Victoria, for example. She started morning pages with profound skepticism. She was just tired of a chronic pattern of abusive relationships. Her pages were initially dark, just full of self-pity, but as she committed to them, she started to notice a subtle shift. She began writing little notes about treating herself better, buying herself small kindnesses, setting small boundaries. This wasn't conscious planning. It was the pages tutoring her.
That internal shift in self-worth then manifested externally.
Absolutely. Because she was internally treating herself with respect, she could no longer tolerate the old pattern. The pages helped her bring the cycle, and when she met a genuinely kind partner, she didn't sabotage it. She realized the pages had tutored her in accepting something she previously found, dull and terrifying because it didn't have the familiar chaos of trauma.
It's also transformative in areas like, say, financial boundaries. There was David, a talented photographer, who found himself in this pattern of financial masochism. He was constantly overworked and underbilled, always feeling broke despite his talent.
Right. And he discovered in his pages that exact phrase, I overworked and underbilled. And it was this shocking moment of self-recognition for him. The guidance he found written in those jumbled streams of consciousness was crystal clear. He needed to bill accurately, reflecting his true worth. His own pen literally wrote out his fair new rate, and the profound result was that his clients, far from pushing back, they just accepted it. This restored not just his solvency, but his fundamental self-worth, which allowed him to afford new tools and actually enjoy his work again.
It sounds like pages are the primary mechanism we use to bypass the biggest source of creative stagnation, which is, of course, the inner critic.
That is the ultimate resistance point. Morning pages train us to trust that raw, first thought before the critic can sterilize it or judge it. Cameron wisely advises acknowledging the critic, maybe even naming him Nigel, that annoying, permanently resident bully, but then treating him with levity.
The strategy is simple but powerful. Just acknowledge and keep moving.
Yes. When the critic hisses, "This is garbage, you are talentless," the trained response is simply, thank you for sharing, and then you just keep writing.
Yeah.
You do not engage in a debate. You recognize the critic as this, miniature, non-domineering relative who is always trying to ruin the family picnic. By treating Nigel as a small, predictable noise, you shrink his control.
And that shrinking of the critic becomes a portable skill you can take everywhere.
It really does. Think of a stage actor or a CEO stepping into a crucial meeting. They hear that inner hiss of self-doubt, but because they've practiced MP, they can mentally note, there goes my critic, thank you for sharing, but I have work to do. This skill lets creators and professionals stay bold and authentic despite the inevitable negativity that comes up when you're taking risks.
Before we move on, we have to address the biggest point of resistance for busy, modern people: the handwriting requirement. Why must they be handwritten? Can't typing just get the job done faster?
This is a point where efficiency really has to yield to efficacy. Speed is the enemy of depth when you're trying to connect to the subconscious. Cameron insists on that direct line from the heart to the hand. Typing is a fast, automated, and often superficial process. It engages a different, quicker part of the brain that's just focused on output.
So typing encourages us to just whiz past the emotional landscape.
Precisely. Handwriting forces you to slow down. That slower pace engages fine motor skills, and crucially, it allows the emotional reality time to actually surface. Handwritten pages yield authenticity and depth because they require patience. They stop you from intellectualizing or editing your true feelings. It facilitates the handmade life we are striving for rather than the rapid digital one.
And finally, the caution against rereading them, immediately waiting 9 weeks or even longer. If I've poured my heart out, I want to review it.
The main reason is trust. The act of writing makes the life indelible, whether you reread it or not. If an issue is truly important, a boundary that needs setting, a project that needs starting, the pages can be trusted to bring it up again and again until you deal with it. Rereading too soon risks turning the pages back into an intellectual exercise, letting the ego edit the raw honesty, or worse, you might find yourself so bored by the repetition that you just stop the practice entirely.
That's a fascinating insight. The resistance to the practice often increases when we give the ego too much control over the raw material.
Indeed. The pages are there for ventilation, not for a performance review. They are the work. The life you lead afterward is the result.
So, moving from the work of morning pages, which is the daily discipline, we now arrive at the play component of creative recovery, artist dates.
Artist dates are the mandatory counterbalance. They feel like a guilty pleasure, which is exactly why people often resist them. They feel they're too frivolous or inefficient. An artist date is a once-weekly solo expedition lasting an hour or two, and it's dedicated exclusively to something lighthearted, engaging, and deeply enchanting.
So we're consciously choosing to woo and nurture the inner artist.
Absolutely. The function is to replenish the inner reservoir of images and ideas. Cameron calls this the koi pond. When we're actively creating, we're constantly fishing from that pond for inspiration, for color, plot, or rhythm. If you overfish it without restocking, the well runs dry. The artist date, that infusion of whimsy or joy or new visuals, is how you replenish the well.
And the experience doesn't have to be like linearly connected to the art. You don't have to visit a pottery studio if you're a sculptor.
Not at all. Enrichment in one category pays dividends in completely unexpected areas. Cameron often talks about visiting the pet store just to pet George, the gigantic gray and white bunny. That simple sensory experience of delight fuels her creative energy, even though George isn't directly related to her memoir. Whimsy restocks the well no matter the source.
And the necessity of solitude here is also absolute. This isn't a social outing.
The rule is rigid. Artist dates must be taken alone. The goal is undivided attention. It's about romancing yourself. Cameron provides a perfect explanation for this. If you go to a movie with a friend, half of you is watching the movie, and half of you is watching your friend watch the movie. The moment you share it, you divide the attention, and you dilute the intimacy required for the creative child to feel truly seen and nurtured.
The power of these dates seems to stem from a really profound shift in self-image and self-worth.
That's where the true transformation lies. Take Juliet, who is deeply fascinated by beads but constantly put her own wants last. On an artist date, she found this stunning blue and silver necklace that was way beyond her budget. But instead of walking away, she committed to a layaway plan.
A small, almost financial commitment to her own desires.
Yes, and that one commitment altered her self-image entirely. When she finally wore the necklace, her pride fostered an impulse to treat herself better. She got a new hairdo, started wearing sophisticated makeup. She realized her own artistry was intrinsically linked to accepting herself as a beautiful, worthy individual. Artist dates are potent because they raise self-worth simply by prioritizing your own gentle desires.
And they actively expand possibility by improving synchronicity, that uncanny intermeshing of our inner state with outside occurrences. Some people might call it luck.
The perfect example is Helen. She was perpetually single and kind of resigned to it. She started visiting her favorite aquarium store every week, a pure, solo, self-nurturing activity. She was genuinely focused on the colors and the movement of the fish, not on finding a date. And because she was radiating genuine interest and self-contentment, she met and ended up dating the handsome clerk there. She wasn't seeking romance, she was honoring her play, and that placed her in the right place at the right time. It's a great illustration of the improved luck that comes from honoring self-nurturing play.
But what if someone is housebound, maybe due to disability or illness, and they can't go to a museum or a pet store? How do you maintain that sense of expansive adventure?
Housebound adaptations rely heavily on internal adventure and creative imagination. Take the disabled poet Juliana. When she was bedridden, her artist dates became these deep literary explorations, like rereading the entire Harry Potter series to fire up her imagination, or conquering particularly tricky rhyme schemes in her poetry. These internal shifts maintained her spirit and her sense of accomplishment. It proves that the adventure has to be expansive in spirit, not necessarily physical.
So, expansive, but crucially not expensive. That's another resistance point, the cost.
Absolutely. The best artist dates often require time, not money. They can be incredibly simple. Visiting a local farmer's market just for the sensory experience, reading children's picture books to engage your inner youngster, or even just making a picnic to eat on the living room floor, focused entirely on the joy of the food.
We see that principle reflected in Ralph, the architect, who called his dates adventures. He realized new visuals equal new ideas.
Rolf's work demanded originality, and he saw his artist dates as necessary research. He would deliberately drive from the city to the country, or vice versa, or visit the zoo just to observe structure and color. The visual stimulation directly resulted in designs for his clients that were playful, original, and expanding real proof that creative consciousness is replenished by the deliberate pursuit of delight.
That naturally leads us into the third and fourth tools, which deal with physical and spiritual movement, walks and guidance.
Cameron initially introduced exercise later in the program, but she has since recognized that walking is just pivotal to creative recovery, not just physical fitness. It's the necessary movement that clears the path laid by the pages.
And the requirement is specific again. Twice a week, solo for 20 minutes. And the quality of the walk, the pace, is paramount.
The pace is crucial. It has to be fast enough to physically arouse consciousness, to get the blood moving, the endorphins flowing, but slow enough that you can actually note your surroundings. If you walk too fast, you're focused on performance. Too slow, and you're focused on rumination. It's a meditative pace. The Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh's instruction to walk as if each footfall were kissing the earth perfectly captures the spiritual connection this practice affords.
What are the primary non-physical benefits of this conscious solo walking?
The greatest benefit is perspective. Walks help you step back from the claustrophobic details of your daily issues. They provide a palpable sense of good, orderly direction, or GOD, which Cameron defines as the belief that you are being cared for. This fosters the intuition that all is well, and it reduces the neurotic need to act defensively against imaginary threats.
So it's physical movement leading to a kind of spiritual surrender.
Exactly. The body releases endorphins, which Cameron aptly calls nature's booster rockets for well-being, providing essential sanity. Walking creates this neutral, spacious environment where solutions can land without the interference of a focused intellect.
We see that sanity-restoring function so clearly in case study 5 with Vivian.
Right, Vivian, the mother of a particularly rambunctious 10-year-old, she felt constantly overwhelmed by her to-do list, convinced she was failing. Her walks became her sanctuary. It wasn't through complex analysis that she found relief. It was through simple, intuitive guidance she received while walking. Don't try harder. That simple message helped her stop focusing on the volume of tasks she hadn't completed and shift her focus to the accomplishments she had successfully managed. It just drastically shifted her perception of herself from failure to competence.
That concept of receiving specific, simple direction leads us perfectly to the fourth tool, guidance. This isn't meditation, it's a specific written practice that follows the walks.
Guidance is a structured tool for immediate instruction. You start by writing a direct question, often a dilemma that your complex intellectual mind has failed to solve. What should I do about X? You then write out the immediate, unedited response you hear. The key here is surrender. It asks us to momentarily sideline the complex intellect and just trust the simple, direct answer that surfaces.
Often that answer is maddeningly simple, which is probably why we resist it.
We resist because we're attached to complexity. We feel if the problem is big, the solution must be equally labyrinthine. Guidance, however, often simplifies. It tells us things like rest or wait or all is well. When we try to argue with that simple answer, we're often told to turn it over. The profound nature of guidance lies in its simplicity. It asks us to start trying to play God and instead trust the benevolent, larger force guiding our path.
And guidance is powerful when dealing with situations that feel insurmountable, like toxic relationships.
Consider Harriet. She felt completely held hostage by her controlling partner, isolated from her support system, drained financially and emotionally. She asked guidance, how do I escape this? The answer was blunt and surprising. Release him gently.
That specific instruction is key.
It was crucial. Harriet was expecting an instruction to fight or flee, but the advice was to focus on her own participation in the codependency. She followed the guidance, writing a gentle email focused only on her need to separate for her own growth, not on his flaws. Following that specific advice gave her an immediate surge of strength and freedom, allowing her to reclaim her life piece by piece.
It also has a devastating way of revealing hidden truths we might be actively avoiding.
The case of Ingrid illustrates this so well. She was in a long-term, largely platonic relationship that felt emotionally hollow, but she couldn't articulate why. When she asked guidance what she should do, the response was unexpected and brutal. He's not faithful. He hasn't been for some time.
That must have been shocking, especially if she had no prior evidence.
It was. But the truth was immediately confirmed when she noticed the faint, telltale scent of another woman's perfume after he showered, a detail she had subconsciously ignored for months. Guidance, in its blunt honesty, gave her the strength to face the painful reality and take control of the situation she was previously just enduring.
And sometimes, guidance isn't an internal voice, but is transmitted through a believing mirror, a peer, who feels guided to speak on our behalf.
That's how the freelance writer Kara found relief. She was miserable and blocked after being assigned a new editor who just hated her style. During lunch, her friend Susan, feeling this inexplicable and immediate compulsion, pushed Kara. "You must call your old editor right now."
Kara initially thought Susan was just being pushy, but her own internal guidance told her to trust Susan's insistence. That immediate, seemingly irrational action led directly to new, fulfilling assignments with her old team. It just shows that wisdom often finds the path of least resistance, whether it's through the page or through a supportive friend. So we've covered the 4 pillars. Morning pages for ventilation and building self-awareness, artist dates for replenishment and raising self-worth, walks for sanity and perspective, and guidance for specific, often profoundly simple instructions. The power is in their synergy and, crucially, in your consistency.
Consistency is the whole game. Cameron advises that it is better to do 1.5 messy pages every single day than 3 perfect pages 3 times a week. The habit is more important than the immediate output.
And for those of you ready to transition from listening to doing, we have synthesized 6 specific, actionable insights, drawing on the entire toolkit for immediate implementation.
Insight number 1, confront the critic with acknowledgement, not argument. We talked about naming him Nigel. The practice here is portable. In any situation, when you're sending an email, submitting a proposal, stepping on stage, when that voice hisses negativity, respond internally with, "Thank you for sharing," and immediately proceed with the action. This trains your brain to miniaturize the bully and maintain your boldness.
Number 2 focuses on play and self-worth. Schedule a mandatory solo date this week that is truly frivolous. Don't link it to productivity. Make it low stakes, like Frederica, the pastry chef, who used her favorite date to bake her grandmother's sour cream raisin pie. The joy of the pie, the sensory memory, that was the fuel, not the recipe. It must be just for you.
Insight 3 addresses the myth of perfectionism in productivity. Find your focus by grabbing time. Stop waiting for ideal, large swaths of 2 hours to begin. The creative life is built on 15 to 20-minute gaps. This is time enough to move ahead 1 notch on a project, write 1 page, or research 1 specific question. Grab that time instead of waiting for ideal conditions that will never materialize.
4th, you can counter that deeply ingrained subconscious resistance using practice affirmations.
Many of us harbor these deep-seated negative beliefs we learned long ago. We need to actively uproot them. Counter these negative blurts by daily writing positive, declarative statements 5 times a day, especially right after your morning pages. Write things like, "I anticipate great good and open my heart to it," or "I am wonderfully creative in all areas of my life." This daily ritual shifts the operating system of your subconscious.
5th, be prepared for the inevitable crash. Identify your U-turn.
The creative U-turn is the tendency to self-sabotage right when change feels imminent, often around weeks 8 to 10 of the practice. You will suddenly feel overwhelmed or rebellious or bored. Know this feeling is coming. When it hits, preemptively commit to respecting your creative needs. Solitude, adequate sleep, good nutrition, and just push through the urge to abandon the work. The U-turn is proof you are on the brink of a breakthrough.
And finally, number 6, trust the simplicity of guidance.
When you write out your request for guidance, remember the examples of Harriet and Ingrid. Your intellect wants a complex, strategic solution. The spiritual answer will be simple, direct, and often counterintuitive. Expect and trust. Answers like rest, leave him, or wait. Simple answers are the most profound because they ask you to surrender your stubborn will and stop trying to force an outcome.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The core principle running beneath this entire toolkit is that your creative dreams, your deepest yearnings, they aren't mistakes or selfish whims. They come from a divine source. And using your creativity, living that full, expressive life, that is your gift back to the world. If you chose to believe right now that your dream is safe and achievable, that there is no error in your path, what single bold miniaturized risk would you take today? And what specific, simple action will you ask guidance to help you with tomorrow morning? Seek guidance and write down what you find. You are loved and lovable.
We encourage you to sign a contract with yourself, even if it's just a mental one, committing to these 4 pivotal tools for the next 12 weeks. Start today, one morning page at a time, and watch your life unfold according to a plan that is far larger, kinder, and more brilliant than your own low self-worth previously allowed.
Until the next deep dive, keep writing, keep playing, and keep walking towards your purpose.
We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a spark of inspiration. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check back for more episodes as we dive into new worlds of thought, one book at a time. Until then, keep your mind set in stone and your curiosity open. This has been a Big L Riz Media podcast, where big ideas meet lasting impressions.